All right. It looks like we're live, finally. So I use StreamYard, and StreamYard sometimes shits the bed. And that's exactly what it did just a moment ago. I've got two YouTube channels. I've got the Brett Johnson Show, and I've got the Cybercrime101 Show. And I was wanting to broadcast or stream tonight's live on the proper channel. And for some reason, StreamYard did not want me to do that. So I had to remove, reset, recover, remove, reset, blah, 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 blah. But we're here. And I know that's illegal. You're not supposed to imbibe any alcoholic beverages, I guess, on these shows. And it's a good thing that there's no label on this sarsaparilla. So, yeah, there we go. Because after that encounter, let me tell you, I need something. I need some Sioux City sarsaparilla. That's what I need. Hey, so we still don't have the signage up. This is the Cybercrime101 Show. Late night, 11 p.m. Eastern. Because I've got this crazy idea that we can make this the coast to coast of crime shows. That's what I've got. I've got a crazy idea that we can make that happen. And hey, we might. Who knows? We might. The force of will. Julie Wilson, good evening. I hope you're doing all right. Force of will matters. Force of will matters. We criminals, and I'm not an active criminal. I don't commit crime anymore. But I've still got the same type of mindset. I've still got the same temptations. So I still call myself a criminal. I'm just a criminal that chooses not to victimize people. Yeah. And we criminals, I will tell you in no uncertain terms, we criminals, we are willing to do things that most ordinary citizens are not. That's just a fact. Like, for example, I've got my quote unquote sarsaparilla right here. It's a tasty cidery sarsaparilla at that. So, Gordon Cody Dixon. Hello, Brett. Really enjoy your show. Oh, thank you, dude. I appreciate that. Really enjoy your shows. I told my wife, Uncle Brett is online, so I'm going to be online for a few. And I appreciate that. And tell your wife I said hello, and I'll try not to keep you very long. Omia Messer, good morning. Or good evening. I'm sorry. See, I'm still stuck on the same show. Harold Turner. Good evening to you as well. So here's the thing. I was... my girlfriend, Lindsay, she knows who I am, but she doesn't know who I am. All right. She gets it. She knows the guy that she met, she knows the guy that she met. And I was very open, told her who I was, what I did, because I believe in doing that. I don't believe in hiding those things from people. I don't believe in that. If you're going to meet and talk to someone and maybe have a relationship with someone, it's important to be truthful. If you're not truthful, you start out as a liar. And to me, at that point, the entire relationship kind of goes downhill. So she knows who I am. I mean, she's seen the Netflix stuff. She's seen the interviews. She knows, she's heard some of the FBI phone calls. She knows who I am, but she doesn't know who I am. So today, I was helping her. I say I was helping. So here's the thing. For any males out there who, you're not fully indoctrinated or versed yet in the wiles of women. Here's some good sage advice to you. The first piece of advice was given to me by a college professor many, many years ago. And he said, hey, here's the thing. Anytime that you're arguing with your wife, anytime, the best thing you could possibly say to that person, to that wife of yours, or that significant other is, perhaps you're right. End of the argument, be done with it. Who cares? Instead of just sitting there arguing, you may be right. And then he got quiet for a second. He said, never say the other half of that sentence. That other half being, but you may be wrong. Never say that. Just say, you may be right. And let it go. Just let it go. Just give up the ghost. a very sage piece of information. The other thing is that, I have found throughout my years of relationships, some very good, some very bad. I adore this young lady that I'm with right now, but I have found that oftentimes when someone says that we are going to do a project, that it often turns into you are going to do the project. I'm just going to kind of supervise. I'm going to direct. That's what I'm going to do. And I'm going to tell you this needs to go here, and this needs to go in the attic, and this needs to go in the attic. And yes, I know that Christmas tree weighs 4,000 pounds, and there's no possible way that it could ever possibly ever fit through that little attic hole right up there that I'm looking at right now. But you're going to get it up there. Do you understand? I'm like, yes, ma'am, I completely understand. So bear that in mind. So we helped clean out the attic today. All right. And she did a lot of work. I'm kidding about that. What happened was, we got through doing most of our project, and we go out for lunch. Because, when it's two people, oftentimes it's cheaper in today's world. Oftentimes it's cheaper to go out and get something than it is to cook something in the house. And I'm munching on some extra toasty cheeses and a nice bologna sandwich, even though bologna in Trump's America is now, $9 for a pack of Oscar Mayer BOLOGNA. So, enjoy every savory bite of that stuff. Why don't you? But anyway, we went out for lunch, and before we left, I got a phone call. Now, here's the thing. I'm exceptional. I'm scary good about being able to ping immediately what's a scam and what's not. I am scary good at that. And there's a reason, and the reason is that I'm that SOB that helped build a lot of that stuff that still takes place today. So I get this phone call. It's an automated call. Comes from 615. It's a Google number that it comes from, and the voice on the other end, the robo voice says, Google has detected that someone is trying to change the phone number associated with your account. And it says, if it's not you, press 1. Well, I already knew what time it was. But it's not like I won't venture down that path. So I pressed 1. And I turned my ringer on because I knew that call was coming. So we get in the car, driving down to have lunch. And she doesn't know what's going on. She has no clue. And like I said, she knows who I am, but she doesn't know who I am. So phone rings. I accept the call. It's coming over across my Google Voice number. And this kid gets on the line. And he's like, my name is Jeremy Watkins, and I'm with Google. And this is case number. And he recites a case number. And he asked me after, he calls me back and he asked me, please don't recite the case number back. And I was like, Jeremy, don't worry, I won't do that at all, buddy. So Jeremy gets on there. He's like, I'm with Google. And I immediately, because I know what time it is, I'm asking, so you're with Google? He's like, yeah. It's like, how long have you been with Google? He's like, well, a couple of years. I said, that is outstanding. Do you like working at Google? And he's like, yes, it's a very good company. I was like, that's outstanding as well. What type of classes and certification did you need to get the job that you've got? And at this point, he's probably thinking that I'm screwing with him, which I am. And he asked, well, why do you want to know that? And I was like, well, Jeremy, I'll tell you the truth. I just don't think that you work at Google. And now Lindsay is in the seat next to me, and she's listening to this, and I'm being my usual colorful, vibrant, friendly, gregarious self. And Jeremy, he gets a little irate. Well, of course I'm with Google. And I was like, no, Jeremy, I don't think you are. I'm with Google's trust and safety department. I was like, well, Jeremy, I'll tell you what, my friend, I know people that are actually at Google, And I know people in the trust and safety department. I could just contact them. But I'm not going to tell you a damn thing. And he keeps going. And by this point, he's a little angry, trying to convince me that he's with Google. And of course, I know he's not, and he knows he's not. So what I say is, it's like, Jeremy, stop for a second. I'm a little loud by this point, and she's got a recording at this point. I'm like, Jeremy, just stop the shit. I was like, right about now is the point that you want to look me up. And he's like, what? He's like, are you even on Google's Slack channel? I was like, no, Jeremy, because of my past, no company will let me on their Slack channel. And he stops and he was like, huh? And I was like, right about now, before we continue this conversation, you probably want to look me up. So he's like, what's your name again? I was like, my name is Brett Johnson. And he's like, he pauses and he's like, wait, what? And I was like, my name is Brett Johnson. The United States Secret Service called me and he says, the original internet godfather. And I was like, yes, that guy. He's like, you are not that guy. And I was like, yes, Jeremy, I am that guy. And he's like, you're telling me that I called the Brett Johnson? And by this point, Lindsay's like looking at me like, what? What's going on? I was like, yes, Jeremy, you called me. You got me. And the reason I know that you're, trying to do a scam is because, well, to be honest with you, I'm kind of the guy that built those types of scams, so I ought to know. So Jeremy, he starts laughing. He's like, man, I was watching you years ago. I was like, well, Jeremy, I truly appreciate you watching me. He's like, dude, you're a legend. And I was like, well, Jeremy, I appreciate that as well. I was like, are you doing okay? And he's like, yeah, I'm doing okay. He's like, I just cannot believe that I've got you on the phone. I was like, yes, Jeremy, you do. And he's like, man, I can't wait to tell my buddies. And I was like, well, Jeremy, you've got my phone number. Go and tell your buddies and, have a good day. And he's like, man, I will. He said, it's been an outright pleasure talking to you. And I was like, it's been a pleasure talking to you as well, Jeremy. So he hangs up. And I'm pumping gas at this point in time. And Lindsay's looking over at me. And she even says it. She says, do I even know who you are? And I was like, well, maybe not. I said, I am fairly well known in certain circles. I said, law enforcement, they pretty much know who I am if they've got any cyber element at all. I'm, if you're somewhat skilled and versed in cybersecurity, you probably know who I am. If you're in fraud prevention, you know the name Brett Johnson. And certainly if you're on the bad guy side of things, you know who the hell I am. So finished pumping my gas and we get back in the car and driving and the phone rings again. And it's Jeremy again. And Jeremy calls. He's like, man, I just want to thank you. He said, this is outstanding. He said, I really appreciate, you being nice and talking to me. And I was like, Jeremy, absolutely, man. And Lindsay, I mean, she doesn't know the environment. So she's like, can I ask you a question? And he was like, he gets quiet. And I was like, Jeremy, this is my girlfriend. And he was like, yeah. And she's like, where are you located? And I just start shaking my head. And I tell him, I was like, Jeremy, you have to forgive her. She doesn't really understand the way these things work. And he was like, well, he said, I can't tell you where I live. He said, but I will tell you that I live in the North American hemisphere. So, and she asked how old he was. And he didn't really tell her that either. And I was like, no, I said, he won't tell you that. He's not going to tell you that kind of stuff. So what I asked him, I was like, first of all, are you safe? I said, you need to stay safe. He's like, yeah, man, I'm safe. I was like, the second thing I'm going to ask you is, do you have some sort of exit strategy at all? And he was like, yeah, he said, I've got a number. And I was like, well, the best advice that I could possibly give you is that whenever you reach that number, that you pull out at that point in time. Because if you don't, I said, we all had numbers on Shadow Crew and stuff like that. And all of us, those numbers went by the wayside pretty quickly. So best advice I could give you is, follow your exit strategy. I said, stay safe out there. And he's like, man, I really appreciate that. And I was like, Jeremy, I said, you've got my cell phone number now. I said, anytime you want to call me, You feel free. You pick up the phone. I'm happy to talk to you. And he's like, really? I was like, yeah, man. I was like, I'm happy to talk to you. And I said, here's another thing. If you get your ass in trouble, you call me and I'll get you taken care of. And what that means is, I've done that before. A criminal reaches out and he's still committing crime. And he's got my phone number. And I tell the dude, I was like, hey, if you get picked up, give me a ring. I'll get you taken care of. And what that actually means is I'll contact the people that I know in the FBI and I'll tell them, hey, this dude is somewhat skilled. He's competent. Not only that, but he knows some shit on some other people. So why don't you go down and talk to him? He'll talk to you. He won't serve nearly the amount of time that he was going to serve, and everyone will be happier at the end of the day. And that's usually what happens. Of course, I got through the phone call, and I'm sure some people are now going to wonder, well, Brett, didn't you try to talk him out of committing crime? And the answer is no, I did not. I did not. And the reason that I didn't is that he was not ready for that conversation. He's not about to quit. He's not about to quit. He's a kid. He did divulge that he was under 19. So I guess he's 17, maybe 16, something like that. If he's the least bit competent, and what he's doing, so that you guys understand, Malone Lamb did almost the exact same type of scheme. What Malone Lamb did, he ran a group of social engineers. So I've said this before. Social engineers, it's a friendly tech, it's a feel-good tech word for a liar, a con man, a manipulator, and it has sometimes it has a tech element to it. All right. And the idea behind social engineering is you want that potential victim out there to do what you want them to do, except you don't want them to know that you're manipulating them into doing it. So it's the smallest thing you can possibly do to get them to make the decision that they think they're making of their own free will that actually benefits you, the social engineer. Now, back in the day, I was a scary, scary, scary SOB on that. And for those people who've watched the Brett Johnson show and what we've done in Eastern Kentucky, you could probably reaffirm that I am still a scary, scary man when it comes to social engineering people. Back then I was probably the best in the world. And that's not bragging. That's just simply the truth. And today, with the way, very few people can social engineer groups of individuals and do it on the fly and adapt to it as it's happening. And that specific skill, I don't think there may be one or two people better than I am. I don't know who they would be, but maybe. When you do it when you're able to do something like that, terrible things can happen. Terrible things on the bad side and terrible things on the good side. On the bad side, it begins with the foundation of modern day cybercrime. And on the good side, it begins, with, you see it rear its terrible head against the corruption and the pedophiles of Eastern Kentucky. So that's the ability of someone who's able to social engineer like that or manipulate like that. It can be used for good or bad. So Jeremy is a social engineer. And what he's doing is he's doing a scheme kind of like Malone Lamb. So Malone Lamb was this kid from Singapore, comes over to the United States, gets his ass on Discord and Telegram, and he starts himself a social engineering group, is what he does. Excuse me. That bologna tastes like it cost $8.99 a pack. It absolutely does. So Malone Lamb comes over, starts himself a social engineering group, and what they would do, they would get lists of Coinbase holders or large crypto holders. Now, Brett, where on earth would they get a list of large holders or account holders at places like Coinbase? Well, where I would get them if I were committing that crime and I were someone like Malone Lamb, is I would get them from an employee at Coinbase, which is exactly what happened. So he gets himself a list, and he and his team, one of the top people that they targeted and they were successful is still like $230 million just from one guy in crypto. They started pinging him. They started sending him what looked like Google alerts saying, and he was a cybersecurity pro. I mean, this guy was well known. I won't say his name because I don't remember the dude's name. If I knew his name, I'd tell it in a heartbeat. But they start sending what looks like Google alerts, and it says that this IP in Russia is trying to take over your Google account. Now, we on the cybersecurity side, and a lot of people that have been on the internet for over a week, where we know that don't pay much attention to that bullshit. But what happens is, usually you get that one alert. Usually. But this guy just didn't get one alert. Malone Lamb just didn't send out one alert, one fake alert. He sent out a lot. And he took his time doing it. Over a space of about 2 weeks, he's really grooming or, prepping, doing kind of a pretext of this potential victim, this cybersecurity CEO that, was supposedly untouchable. So he keeps sending these messages. And what happens is that has a psychological effect. You start out doubting it. It's got to be a scam. But the more you see that message, you inherently start to worry. Maybe there's something to it. And then what happens? Then you get a phone call. Then you get a phone call from Google, the Google professional. And that Google professional, yes, we've been noticing some attempts to log into your account, to take it over, to change whatever information is there. We just wanted to verify whether that was you or not. And of course, the guy's going to say no. And the trick at that point, you've got a team of people that are playing, and you're bouncing that victim back and forth between that team. All right. And what it does is it helps build trust, establish trust. Remember, I said yesterday, in order for me to victimize you in an online crime, I have to get you to trust me. If you don't trust me, you're not going to give me information, access, data, cash. So they bounce this guy back and forth between Google, between a couple other, I think they may have had a guy claimed he was from Coinbase at one point, some bullshit like that. But they say, to secure your account, we're going to send you a security code. And they do. He gets a security code on his phone. Now, they tell him on the phone, we need you to repeat that code back to us. Now, what happens? Well, of course, the bad guys are the ones who triggered that security code. They knew he was going to receive it. They're on the phone to get it back. They get it from him. They take over the account. Ultimately, they take over his Coinbase account. And the dude, for some damn reason that I don't even know, I mean, you supposed to be a cybersecurity pro, evidently was, had been in the crypto world for a minute, yet he leaves $230 million laying around in an account on Coinbase. Go figure that one for a minute, because I sure as hell cannot. But they still, just off that one guy, like $230 million. Now, they ended up getting caught. That's basically what Jeremy, and that's not his real name, but that's basically what Jeremy's doing. And if Jeremy's the least bit competent, and I think he probably is. If he's not, he will be, If he's the least bit competent, he's probably already pulling in some decent money. Because it's not rocket science. It's not. What Jeremy's already figured out, he may not be able to put it into proper terms like I am, but Jeremy has figured out a very quick way to establish trust with those potential victims. And that very quick way is this right here, the cell phone. Simply calling that potential victim and talking to them and telling them that you're with Google or with Coinbase or with Citibank or wherever. Simply the act of talking to that other human being over the phone instead of sending text messages or emails and all that BS, that act of talking goes a long way toward establishing trust. Now, back in the day, and it's still like that to a degree, most beginning cyber criminals, fraudsters, scammers, whatever you want to call them, most of those people are scared to death to actually pick up the phone and call a retail merchant, a potential victim, a bank, anything like that. They're scared to death. They think their voice is going to be recorded. They think they'll be identified. They'll be able to be traced back. And typically it takes a minute for that specific criminal to gather the experience, the knowledge, and the confidence to pick up that phone and actually talk to someone. And once they do that, once they pick it up and dial and smile, once they do that, man, they understand the power of that. Jeremy's already at that point. So Jeremy is he's either been doing this a minute, or Jeremy has a degree of willpower that signals that he is going to be fairly successful in this criminal enterprise of his. Now, will Jeremy be caught? I don't know. Lindsay asked me, she's like, aren't you going to report him? I was like, no, I'm not going to report him. I mean, there's not really much need in that. I mean, so far, the only thing he's done to me is he pretended to be a Google employee. You know, he pretended to work at Google. And as far as I can tell, half of the people that actually work at Google really just pretend to work at Google. I mean, what do they do? Evidently not much. Evidently. So I was like, no, I'm not going to report him. And she's like, well, can't you trace him? I was like, well, probably not. I said, I'm not going to put the effort into even trying. I said, what will happen is, you know, if he continues on with this and he doesn't follow, you know, that exit strategy that he said he was going to, and he probably won't. If he doesn't follow that, at some point, he'll probably be picked up. And at that point, I will absolutely get a phone call. I will. He will remember, and he'll call me again, you know, in a week or so, or maybe, you know, maybe he's watching tonight's show. I don't know, but he'll call and we'll have another chat. And, you know, I'll remind him of his exit strategy, and I'll say, you know, dude, just stay safe and try not to victimize too many people, you know. And he'll think I'm being, you know, a father to him because I'm, you know, trying to be a moral character. And he'll, you know, kind of huff and puff. And I know, Brett, I know. And I know, you know, Jeremy. So the only thing I can do is try to, you know, guide, steer, and protect. And the thing is when you deal with people like that, and I know immediately out of the gate, if they're going to be receptive or not. He wasn't. I mean, the kid was, to him, he's in the fun stage right now. You know, he's having fun with what he's doing. He's not gotten to that point, and it always gets to that point. He's not gotten to that point that it's not fun anymore. You know, it was fun for a minute. It's not fun anymore. Now it's work. And now you're scared that the end is coming because some of your buddies have been arrested. You know, you may have been, you know, solid on your security, but it turns out that they were idiots on theirs. So yeah, it becomes work after a while. And Jeremy's nowhere near that point yet. And because of that, there's really little need to, you know, have that, you know, you need to quit conversation. You know, as I get to know Jeremy, maybe we can talk to him a little bit more, because I think he's got some promise on the good guys. I know he's got promise on the criminal side. And to me, that means he absolutely has promise on the good guy side. That absolutely does. He's just, you know, right now, this is what the kid's doing. So he's got my number. I fully expect he'll continue to call, and I'll develop a relationship with the young man and hopefully be able to take him in under my wing a bit, guide and mentor him. And, you know, he can say in the future, instead of, you know, telling me how much I'm a legend on these forums that he frequents, maybe in the future he can, you know, sit there and say, you know, that Brett Johnson, that was the best phone call I ever made right there. That dude, he helped me out to no end. So maybe that's what we'll end up having. I hope so. We'll see. Let's check the comments. and we'll go from there. This is the Cybercrime 101 show, the coast to coast of crime shows. I like that. I like that. I even like the blue background. I didn't think I would. I like the blue background. I got to put this sign up. I don't know what else I got to put up. Lindsay has, she told me that I didn't need the bookshelves. I don't know, but I like the color scheme right now. I truly do. We need the sign. I feel kind of, I got to have my puppet. Got to get my puppet in here. Got to make sure Pookie gets on schedule as well. We got to have a statue or two or some toys. I mean, like I said, the only thing I've got is my Slayer desk caddy. That's right. You take the helmet off. You put whatever you need to right in the skull. That's right. Slayer. Well, because why not? You're darn Skippy. Why not? So, I don't know what I'll do in the background. Suggestions, I am open to that. I do like the lighting. I have to say I like the lighting. That is not bad at all. Let's check the comments. See how everybody's doing tonight, late night on a Friday. All right. See what we got. Lisa Smith, good evening. How are you doing? Janice Noble, good evening. Bethany Lenore Felter, good evening. Here we go. L Train, you're on Netflix? Yes, I am on Netflix. Web of Make Believe, episodes 5 and 6 has to do, and I got to tell you, those episodes 5 and 6, it is a laugh out loud riot. The parts that have, that are talking about me. Because let's be honest, some of my story is very entertaining. It truly is. And those 2 episodes highlight a lot of that story that's very entertaining. So by all means, tune in to that. I'm also on Netflix on Greatest Crypto Heist. It's about Razzle Khan and that other dipshit that tried to launder the $4 billion in stolen Bitcoin from Bitfinex. I broke a major piece of news regarding that heist. And I was the only person on the planet that could have broken it. I did that. Forbes found out. They came in and filmed me. And then the director of Greatest Crypto Heist, he's the same guy that directed Tiger King, really good guy. He wanted to interview me for the documentary. And I flew in, so I'm on that as well. I'm over on Hulu, Black Market, Season 2, Episode 1. That's not a bad show at all. It had, I believe the gentleman's name was Michael Wilson, black actor who was on The Wire. Very, very good actor. And he died right at the start of the 2nd season of that series. So, but you can catch me on that. If you want to go on YouTube, I'm on Lex Friedman, Jordan Peterson, Megyn Kelly, Business Insider. I mean, ton of stuff. I like my girlfriend, for example, her family, they're very upset. They're very upset that I'm this, criminal. My daughter is dating a criminal. But the thing is that, hell, I'll refer to myself as a criminal, but I'm a criminal that does a shit ton of good these days. Even as I drink a nondescript sarsaparilla. Tasty. So, tune in and enjoy the shows if you want to watch those. Dillian Campbell, good evening, and hope you're doing all right. Well, there's Neil. Hope you had a good day. Neil, I did, man. I didn't have a bad day at all. I got to play with my pup. Gotten what looks like maybe 1 or 2 more gigs. So business is picking back up now that I'm reaching back out into into the cyber security and fraud prevention world. So business is picking back up. I'm happy about that. So it's a pretty good day, man. We're going to on the Brett Johnson show tomorrow. There was so for those who don't tune into the Brett Johnson show, I do this show called the Brett Johnson Show, and it turned into a show that is kind of concentrated in Eastern Kentucky because that's where I'm from. Concentrated in there, and it was initially started about getting justice for a 16-year-old girl who was murdered, and we got justice. We got justice for that child, and since that point, the show itself has become kind of an avenue for people who cannot find justice anywhere else. So they reach out to the show, and we, in a very belligerent, an extremely belligerent manner. I mean, I really cannot overstate how belligerent a manner we do it on the show. We are very I have trouble saying that. We are very unorthodox in our methods. Very. But our results cannot be denied. Cannot. So this family from Breathitt County, they reached out to me. Evidently, one of the relatives, he was riding a scooter, I guess, around the Walmart area there in Breathitt County. And this individual hits the kid, runs over the kid. Not only runs over the kid, but drags the kid 170 feet. Not only does he drag the kid 170 feet, but he then parks the car, gets out of the car, goes into the IGA. I guess he needed to get some tuna packs or some shit. Goes into the IGA, shops around or does whatever he's going to do, comes back out. And I guess at that point, he notices that he's got this broken kid under his wheels. Family reached out to me because evidently the driver, the one who was so intent on shopping at IGA, the driver evidently is related to a law enforcement officer in Breathitt County, Kentucky. And that family has been told nothing about anything that's going to happen to the driver. It's not even been confirmed what the driver's name is, and the driver is an adult. Not even been confirmed about that. They've not been told anything at all. No real investigation, it seems, nothing else like that. Meanwhile, their family member is in ICU, and I read a list of everything that was broken, and just extremely disturbing. And they asked, someone had told them to contact Brett Johnson, that he would not let it go. And the lady who reached out to me, I told her, I was like, I promise you, I will not let it go. And I mean that. So that's what we do on the Brett Johnson Show. For those who don't tune into it and are just visiting the Cybercrime 101 show, which I fashioned as the coast to coast of crime shows or podcasts, because, hey, we don't have to talk about cybercrime and security and frauds and scams. I mean, ostensibly, that's what the show's about. Ostensibly, I want to talk about that because I'm very knowledgeable. It helps my business. And, any victims that wander in, or someone who thinks that a family member, a friend, or associate is being victimized, they can ask questions. And I'm very good about answering those questions. I tend to know the answers, and can help mitigate the problem, can provide some victim advocacy, can reach out to law enforcement on their behalf in certain circumstances, and can really assist. But we don't have to talk about that. Being the type of show that it is, hey, you guys want to talk about something, pony up. We'll cowboy up and talk about that all day. Bethany, I had a fried bologna sandwich yesterday. It was so good. I like my bologna. I like it burnt. I gotta be honest with you. I like it burnt. I don't like that. Not like it where it's just, a little warm. I want it where it's a little crunchy. That's what I want. Pole ticks are the worst kind of parasite. I absolutely agree with you on that. I just assume everything is a scam these days. I get worried about my elderly mother, though. Some of the scams are getting pretty good. You're right. The weird thing, when I was committing crime, when I was, top of that food chain committing crime, the people, my associates, we had to understand every single aspect or dynamic of the crime which we were committing. We had to understand our own operational security so that we weren't identified or worse, arrested. We had to understand the security of the company. We had to understand how to steal identities, how to use tools, um, how to launch a man-in-the-middle attack, how to run drop addresses, how to launder money. You had to understand how to make fake IDs. You had to understand everything across the board. These days, cybercrime, I've said this last night, I'm going to say it again today. Cybercrime is the third largest economy on the planet. And the reason being, some of it has to do with my building that trust mechanism way back then that's still in play today. Some of it has to do with that, but a lot of it has to do in the way that online crime, frauds, and scams have evolved over the years. These days, you don't have to understand any aspect of any crime at all that you want to commit in order to be able to commit it and largely be successful in it. Everything is off the shelf products, tools, services, even learning packages. So you can buy a tutorial like Telegram, for example. So a FEMA tutorial will tell you how to answer the questions on the FEMA questionnaire so that, if an area is hit with a flood or what have you, you can get that $42,000 grant or that emergency $1,000 loan or what have you. You can get that. $15. You can take live instruction classes. They range anywhere from $300 up to about $3,000. And, a virtual fraudster expert will take you by that virtual hand of yours and will walk you through how to commit one specific type of fraud. And it comes with a guarantee. And that guarantee is, hey, when you're done with this class, if you're not making money, I'll refund you your tuition. And he means it. That's the thing. He means it. He's not bullshitting about that. He actually means that, because customer service matters on the bad side as well as it matters on the good side. Cybercrime is the third largest economy on the planet, $10 trillion. You've got the United States, China, cybercrime. You've got a lot of people who want to be the top vendor of stolen credit cards, fake IDs, fools, so that you can take over someone's bank account, whatever that is. You've got people that want to be the top vendor. So if this person is not providing solid customer service, you can bet you've got another seller that's selling the exact same type of product that's just waiting to take his place that will provide better customer experience for those criminals that are buying. That's the way it works. And because of that ease is one of the reasons that cybercrime is now as large as it is. You can add other things into it. You can add in how much faster the dark web has gotten. So when I was caught, I was arrested February 8th of 2005, started working with the Secret Service, ripping off the Secret Service. And this would have been, I went on the run in March of 6, I think is when I went on the run. Yeah, March of 6. So it would have been probably January of 06. They got a memo, and the memo was talking about Tor, the onion router, the dark web. And the memo basically said, hey, we're going to have to watch out for this because this shit's going to be bad. And so we fired it up and got on it. And back then, it was almost unusable because not many people were using it, and it was exceptionally slow. But man, it's come along. It's pretty fast now. It's pretty good. And not only that, but you've got Telegram. You've got these other platforms. You've got more encrypted messaging channels at the same time. Criminals, the ease of use has gotten better. The collaboration, sharing of exchanging of information has gotten much better. You want to know why the bad guys win almost every single day and the good guys are losing? A lot of it has to do with criminals are much better at sharing and exchanging information than the good guys are. Now, the good guys have reasons. You have privacy laws. Mm-hmm. You have regulations. Mm-hmm. And then you have something called a competitive edge. So what happens is if I am committing a fraud or victimizing one specific company in one vertical, I'll hit that company as hard as I possibly can. I'll concentrate just on that one company. Now, that company, they will let that fraud go until, it exceeds that 1% threshold or whatever that is. And then they'll start to try to mitigate the problem. All right. So they'll put proper security in place where it makes it harder for me and it takes me more time and effort to victimize that one specific company, to steal from that one specific company. While that company is doing that, they don't share any of that information at all with any of their competitors. Why? Well, because they're hoping that, we put in security here. Hopefully, Brett Johnson will go to our competitor and knock the hell out of them. And that's exactly what happens. They put in enough security at that company I've been hitting. I just go to another company in the exact same vertical, commit the exact same crime the exact same way, and it works exactly the same because of these competitive edges. Criminals are not like that. We understood with Shadow Crew that by sharing and exchanging information across the board, everyone becomes more knowledgeable and everyone becomes more profitable. The quote unquote good guys still ain't there. They still ain't there. They think that, we'll just keep this secret and we'll protect ourselves and screw everyone else. And what they don't understand is, well, what that does is that makes, my job much easier. And it makes you less safe because where you ain't looking out for your neighbor, they ain't looking out for you either. So there you go. So moving right along. But yeah, you're talking about everything's a scam. Some of them are very good. Some of them are getting very good. What you have to remember is, what do criminals look for online? They look for information, access, data, cash, information. What can I find out about you or your company or your children? Access. Can I get you to plug in a thumb drive? Can I get you to give me remote access to your machine? I can. Believe me, I can. Data. Do you have data that I can steal, resell on the black market? Do you have data that I can lock down, hold for ransom? Or do you have data that I can do both too? And then finally, can I just extort you directly for cash? So information, access, data, cash is what criminals are looking for. To do that, to get you to give them that, they have to get you to trust them. So the question should always become, what does it take to gain your trust against someone or with someone that you've never met? And here's should be the rule for you. Okay. I know that everyone's got social media. I've got about 20,000 followers on LinkedIn. I've got like 17,000 connections on LinkedIn. I've got, 11, 12,000 people over on Twitter and several thousand on Facebook. All right. Are they my friends? No, they're not. I know them in an online world, but here should be the rule for you. Those people are not your friends unless they have been in your house, been in your bathroom, and took the nastiest shit ever was. So bad that when you walked by the door, you started to gag uncontrollably. That is when you know that you actually know that person, and you could call that person, if you wanted to, a friend at that point. If that's not happened, you don't know that person. That's an associate at best. So those people, when they're, that ask comes for information, access, data, or cash, how did they get you to trust them? Was it a stolen identity? Was it a phone call? Was it them simply saying that, they spoofed a phone number that looks like it comes from Bank of America, and they quote back some of your financial information, and was that enough to gain your trust? Was just the voice on the other end of the line? What was it? What is it that gains your trust? If you understand that from either a company point of view or a personal point of view, you can start to design security around just that one area where they're going to try to build trust with you, and you can mitigate those types of attacks. You have to understand with a lot of scams, a lot of those type, whether it be crypto or romance, sextortion, anything else like that, a lot of those scams work on an emotional level. And I really hate the way that cybersecurity awareness training happens today, or fraud prevention training happens. I really don't agree with it at all, because that type of training takes place at a very rational level. You educate the employee or that potential victim at a rational level how that crime happens, and then what you need to do to keep from being a victim of that crime, the steps you can take and the red flags that pop up and all that. Well, as an attacker, as that criminal, I understand that you can understand something rationally all day long. That doesn't mean you understand it emotionally whatsoever. And that's the difference, because as an attacker, I'm not trying to get you to react rationally. I'm trying to get you to react at an emotional level, because if you do that, it's much easier for me to build trust with you. You take relationship scams or romance schemes, things like that. Those people that become victimized, they are hopeful that they will find a friend, a love, what have you, someone to talk to. They're hopeful for that. That hope is an emotion. That's not rational. That's an emotion. And I will tell you in no uncertain terms that if you want to believe something, it only takes me the smallest thing. I only have to do the smallest thing to allow you to believe that, if you're thinking on an emotional level. Because you want to believe it, I'm going to allow you to believe it, and we're going to continue from there. All right. So it becomes very important to slow things down. Most of these schemes, even a romance scheme can take place over many months or maybe even a couple of years. But at the same time, it's also a very fast moving scheme. The layering of trust and the building of a trust, getting up to the point where that criminal is doing the ask for the money, that may take some time. But once that ask happens, it becomes a very quick moving scheme. It's something that relies on the emotion of that potential victim. And as such, that emotion, it has been built and the trust has been layered for so long that oftentimes that potential victim is not just a one-time payment. It can become every single thing that they've ever had or will ever hope to have. And I've seen this time and time again. So how do you defeat that? Well, you defeat that by first, find yourself a buddy, find yourself an enemy. I don't care who the hell it is. We as a nation, we have gotten to the point that we only care about ourselves. That's all we care. Most of us don't know our next door neighbors. We don't speak. Hell, sometimes we don't even wave at them if they're out in the yard next to us. So we don't know our neighbors. We don't pay attention to our fellow human being. We don't seek to help our neighbors. We just don't care. And that's one of the first problems, is that if you expect to win the game against cybercrime and fraud and scams and things like that, you have to understand that criminals out there, they absolutely bond together. They look after each other. They are a family, and they treat each other as family. And that's one of the reasons, that cohesiveness, that's one of the reasons that they're also very successful. Meanwhile, you've got a lot of victims. The society has taught us that, hey, you got to look out for number one yourself because nobody else is going to. Well, no. You should also look out for your fellow human being. You should. So, what I would say is, pay attention to your neighbors, get to know your neighbors, get to know if they're going through any bullshit, anything like that. At the same time, if you're wanting to have good security, get out and talk to people. Find yourself a friend. Find yourself an enemy. If you ain't got no one, pick up the phone, call AARP's Fraud Watch. It's a free call. And those people will actually walk you through, and they'll be your buddy right then. They'll be your buddy enough to tell you that, hey, this is a scam right now. This is how the scam works. And just calling them slows things down enough that the level of emotion that you had when you were about to pull that trigger, that level of emotion starts to die down. Reason and rationality start to take over, and you're less likely to send the money to that attacker or to that criminal. So it's not proper security. That's the weird thing. Proper cybersecurity or fraud prevention, things like that. It's not really magic. It's not really rocket science. It's simply doing the nuts and bolts of things. That's all it is. So just be aware of that. All right. Moving right along. Let's see. Try to sell scammers dildos. I have had fun with that in the past. It works two ways: pickle bread and toys. Whatever works. Hey, I'm not going to fault you, man. I am not going to fault you. What we got here? Shut 77 down. Howdy, y'all. Well, howdy, y'all too. L Train. What a flex, LL. I always answer scam calls. Hello, fraud department. They hang up on me every time. I got to the point. I used to terrorize because I got bored during COVID. Who didn't? I mean, and the rest of the family, you got to realize, shit, I'd served prison time. Now they've got COVID and you're supposed to stay in your house. Well, I've got a movie server with 5,000 movies. I've got 3 video game systems. I've got 2 home computers. I've got books out the wazoo. I've got a yard I can walk in. Man, I can do this all day long. The rest of the family, though, they had never been through any lockdown like that. So while they went nuts, I'm sitting there going, I'm okay. I'm doing just fine. Make me another bologna sandwich. That's one of the benefits of prison. It gives you a proper perspective of COVID lockdowns and pandemic lockdowns and how it ain't really that serious, Oh, why didn't I say that myself? Hit that like button, please. And hey, if you guys don't mind, kind of a brand new channel, Cybercrime101 over at YouTube. Only had yesterday, I think we only had like 611 subscribers. I think on YouTube it's only been viewed, like yesterday's show was only viewed, I don't know, 29 times, something like that. So if you could tell your friends, family members, associates, enemies, Michael Campbell, the drug dealer out in Kentucky, Happy Mobilini, the mayor, tell them all they can watch Brett Johnson. Even more, if they subscribe to the Cybercrime 101 show over on YouTube and hit that like button. Just saying. All right. I'm intrigued by refund fraud. You had a couple of episodes on it in the past. I did. I'll tell you now that, again, I'm kind of an interesting dude on some stuff. I'm able to predict where things are going to go oftentimes. I'm the first guy on the quote unquote good guy side that ever talked about refunding fraud. First guy that ever did that. It was my first presentation. Carice Hendrick had hired me to keynote the Card Not Present conference. I forgot where, I think it was in Vegas, was where that was. And I started talking, a section of that presentation talked about refunding fraud. And back then, refunding fraud was only hitting Amazon and what you would do. So you had Evolution Marketplace. Evolution Marketplace was a dark web market, had a forum attached to it, fairly competent. The owners of that, they pulled an exit scam. And what that means is they shut down their criminal marketplace and stole everyone's Bitcoin, about $23 million worth. No one knew who did it. About 18 months later, they find the owner on a beach in Cyprus. They didn't find his head and hands, but they found the owner. And I guess he had stolen some money from some Ukrainians that didn't like that. So they wanted to send a message, and I'm sure that someone got the message. At least I know he got the message. Anyway, what happens after that is Alexander Kazaa, he starts a thing called Alphabay, which that gets popped a few years later, and Alexander is in Thailand. And Alexander, because he had allowed fentanyl to be sold on Alphabay, and he knew he was going to get life in prison at least, Alexander promptly hangs himself in the jail cell where they lodge him. And he, gives up the ghost. Well, on Evolution Marketplace, we started to see members claiming that they were making $10,000 a month doing Amazon refunds. And by and large, the response was, you are full of shit. No one's making that kind of money. Well, no, they weren't full of shit. They absolutely were not. And what was going on then is you would sign up for a Prime free trial. You'd use your name, your address, your card. Typically, you'd order a MacBook Pro. Amazon to ship it to you, arrive 2 days later, leave it on your doorstep. You get on a chat session or get on the phone, tell Amazon, I didn't get it. Amazon would send you out another MacBook Pro. It would arrive 2 days later. They would leave it on your doorstep. You would get back on the same chat session or on the phone, and you would say, I didn't get that one either. And then Amazon would give you your money back. So you get 2 MacBook Pros and your money back. Not a bad gig. Very, very easy to get by with. It wasn't just MacBooks. It was, 65-inch TVs, living room sofas. It was all this bullshit that was going on. And Amazon, they ate Amazon alive. And it became so popular back then. It became so popular that it almost immediately changed the dynamic of the way that people began their cybercrime careers. Back before refunding, what you would typically do is you'd see some news blurb, or you'd read something in a paper or magazine about all this credit card theft, and you'd get that that twinkle in your eye and say, oh, I think I would like to become a credit card thief too. These people are getting all kinds of money. So you'd go on the dark web and you'd buy some stolen credit cards, and if you were lucky, those stolen credit cards would be valid, and they would have some money on them. And then what would you try to do? Well, then you would try to order laptops or some bullshit like that, and you would fail miserably, because come to find out, that requires at least some degree of skill. So a lot of those people at that point in time, it would weed out a lot of those entrants, those aspiring criminals. They'd go down to McDonald's and flip burgers or whatever they would do, or they, sling drugs on the corner instead of trying to commit credit card fraud. Refunding fraud changed that. With refunding fraud, everyone that came into the environment started to profit immediately and profit well. So it started to change things almost out of the gate. Amazon, at the same time, they let it go. They let it go for over a year. And needless to say, that competitive edge that I just mentioned a few minutes ago, they don't tell any of their competitors whatsoever that it's going on. They don't mention it at all, because, that's the way, a lot of these merchants and the companies do things. That's one of the reasons that bad guys, criminals, we succeed far more than they succeed. So Amazon lets it go for over a year. Then they get this genius idea that, what we'll do is we will require people who are asking for refunds on, these highly fraudulent type of items, will require them to submit a police report to us before they can get the refund. And that should stop it dead in its tracks. Well, what happens is, and Secret Service and FBI had the same problem when, they started to understand what cybercrime was, because they didn't know or understand the people who were actually committing online crimes. We're a different type of breed. We love the hell out of testing things. Well, Amazon says that, and one dude, he says to himself, I wonder if they're actually verifying any of those police reports. So what does he do? He fakes a police report, photoshops it, sends its ass in. Amazon gives the refund. Of course they do. And then what happens? Well, on the forums, you get these little shops pop up of photoshopped police reports, $25 a piece, and they eat Amazon alive again for, 6, 12 months is what happens. Ultimately, they start, photographing packages as it leaves the warehouse. They start being very adamant about weighing the packages as it leaves the warehouse. And then finally, they start taking pictures of the package being delivered on your porch, is what happens. That's what happens. So, the initial reason for refunding was, you would tell that merchant. And what happens is as Amazon puts in more security, those criminals, those refunders, because, Amazon didn't inform any competitor at all of anything that was going on. So they pivot over to Apple, they pivot over to the Microsoft store, and today they play with every merchant everywhere, and off and on are very profitable and very successful, because that's another thing that happens. Come to find out that a lot of companies are very cyclical in the way they do security. So they will put in security tools to mitigate that type of fraud. And what will happen, it's cute. What happens is it'll stop that fraud because that bar is there. So the fraud numbers will drop down below the bar. Well, that bar, we don't need the bar there anymore. And the bar is, maybe machine learning, or maybe it's some sort of shitty other AI. And that bar just kind of goes down below again. Well, then that means that those fraudsters that weren't doing it, they are able to do it again. So it comes in these cycles. And it used to be with Western Union, it's about a 3-month cycle. 3 months, Western Union would be wide open. 3 months, they were locked down. And it was like that over and over for years. So, of course, these fraudsters, they hit Apple, Microsoft, and today they hit every single merchant across the planet. And Amazon, they start photographing packages. And the initial reason that fraudsters or refunders gave in order to get the refund back is, hey, it didn't get here. Yeah, it says delivered, but it's not here. It's not here. So Amazon thought they solved that by taking a picture of the box. Well, no, they didn't solve that, because the second reason takes care of that. Well, yeah, the box is here. Yeah, I got the box. My laptop's not in the box. Yeah. Even the retail laptop box is here. What I'm saying is that the laptop ain't in no box. So and today these reasons still work depending on who you're targeting. So did not arrive, was not in the box. And then these days you've got FTID and a couple of other methods. You can fake a tracking. You inform the company that you want to return the item, and the company you print out a shipping label, and then you can manipulate the shipping label. You can take a lot of the information off of it. And like I helped assist the FBI with the arrest of 300 Telegram fraudsters back in 24. And what one of those guys was doing was, manipulating the shipping label and shipping back plastic frogs instead of laptop computers. And that son of a bitch got by with it. For a while he got by with it. So you get the fake tracking information. You can have the return delivered within that one specific geographic radius of where the return center is, and it will register as being returned. Some companies, like I consulted with Adidas at one point, and Adidas, man, you talk about them shit in the bed. They absolutely did. So Adidas was being eaten alive because Adidas was offering an instant refund, and the companies still do this to this day. So as soon as the shipping label is scanned in at the FedEx Center or Kinko's or wherever, or UPS store, as soon as the shipping label scanned in, your money is back in your account. They don't have to get the items back. Well, Adidas was doing that to the tune of $150,000. You could buy $150K of whatever the hell you're going to buy from Adidas. I have no idea what the hell's someone would buy for $150K from Adidas. But, you say you want a refund on it, scan a shipping label in, and it's immediately back in your account. They were being eaten alive with that. And I was working with Arcos Labs, bot mitigation company. And my job for them was initially a gimmick. That's all it was. It was a gimmick. They didn't know what to do with me. They didn't want to do anything with me. They just wanted a criminal, former U.S. most wanted guy on their staff. The CEO and founder over there, Kevin, he, from what I was told, he was jealous that Kevin Mitnick was over at No before, and he wanted himself a Kevin Mitnick. So hire Brett Johnson. And they did. And they didn't know what to do with me. And I actually got to talk to Adidas one day and gave them some sage advice. And it saved them a shit ton of money. And at that point was when Brett Johnson was no longer considered a gimmick at Arcos Labs. That's what happened. So you get all kinds of, refunding. It's not going anywhere anytime soon, because the truth of the matter is sometimes those packages don't arrive on your porch. Sometimes that item is not in the box. And because of the way the return system is set up, I've got a buddy, Michael Semister, that's done a lot of study and investigation into this kind of stuff. And the way the entire return system is set up, it lends itself to fraud to begin with. And at the same time, the companies that are doing it that way, they are so profitable that they don't really give much of a damn, is what happens. And because of that, refunding will continue. And because refunding will continue, it's not like the company is going to absorb the costs. No, that company is going to pass the cost on to every other legitimate customer of that company by raising prices on whatever item that they have to raise prices on, because that's the way they work as well. Will Parker, good evening, Mr. Johnson, and good evening, Will, to you as well. I appreciate you tuning into the show. I truly do. I'm glad you liked the image I made for you. Will, you saw I used it on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on Twitter, and I'm going to continue to use it. I'm going to try to make that. We'll see how you add that to StreamYard. So that'll be like the waiting symbol before the show goes live. I really like that graphic. Thank you so much for making that. I truly appreciate it. Are you talking about Mr. Jeff Campbell in Tennessee? No, I was talking about Jeff Campbell in Kentucky, and we are going to continue. We're going to, again, this is the Brett Johnson Show. I know that I'm the same guy, but Monday on the Brett Johnson Show, we're going to call the Perry County Board of Education, try to get that son of a bitch fired, because he is he wants to be a child rapist, and he drives a school bus. He teaches school. The Board of Education know that he's a pedophile and he wants to do that to children, and they're still allowing him to work there. And I just don't think that should be acceptable. So Monday we're going to call, we're going to get that ball rolling. Now tomorrow we're going to start to handle this Breathitt County thing on the Brett Johnson Show at 11 a.m. Eastern. We're going to start handle this Brett Johnson Show, and we're going to start handle this Breathitt County thing and get some justice for the family and for that poor person that was ran over and dragged 170 feet so some asshole could go into IGA and get tuna packs or whatever he was getting. So we're going to get some justice on that. You can bet on that one. Amber Nicole, he has to want to change his own. Eventually he will. But one way or the other, that's true. I mean, Jeremy, I have hope for people like Jeremy. I do. And that hope was, the guy could have easily, realized who I was. I mean, he knows. He'd been watching me for a while. He knows I work with the FBI. He could have easily hanged up. He could have hung up the phone. And he didn't. He didn't. The young man, me and him, we had a very civil conversation. We had a connection. I was friendly. He was friendly. We were respectful of each other. We knew our places. We didn't try to encroach on each other at all. So I do believe that the young man will reach back out to me. And I believe that, hopefully I'll be able to mentor him a bit and guide him a bit. You can't push. There's a difference between pushing and guiding. I'm not going to push the kid, maybe just guide him a little bit until, he gets on that, do the right damn thing path. That's not a bad idea. It's not a bad idea to at all. Look at this. There's my family. Francis Everidge, I love you. I truly do. Bethany, I like the bookshelf and sign. And the sign is absolutely coming back. I'm thinking I'm bringing the bookshelf back. I truly am. There has to be at least the sign. There has to be something back behind me. I'm not happy. I'm not happy without it. So it has to be something. Delia Ritchie, good evening, Brett, and good evening to you as well. The Butterfly King, what are your thoughts on AI agents, different large language models being used to facilitate fraud? Will this be one of the next big things in fraud? To a degree, it's a big thing in fraud right now. It's certainly in play right now when we're talking about CPN fraud. And for you good guys out there who might be watching, you notice I didn't say synthetic identity theft. I said CPN fraud. It's one of the things you got to watch. If you would be to venture over into a criminal neighborhood online, it's important that you use the correct verbiage, because when you use the incorrect verbiage, like, where can I get me some synthetic identities? They're going to look at you like, oh, I know who this dude is. I know exactly who this dude is. He thinks he's smart. He thinks he knows something. So it's important to use correct verbiage. It's CPN fraud. All right. So certainly AI is being used to make those profiles look more legitimate. The Twitter profile or the Facebook profile, the family pictures, things like that, because that matters. You get a lot of companies that are convinced that if that identity has a Facebook or a LinkedIn account, that it's a real identity. So it's more than one company that's convinced of that. It truly is. So you're seeing AI do that. You're seeing AI help with deep fakes, with the profiles, with layering trust. You're seeing that. You're seeing AI to a degree. I mean, stat came out today. Microsoft said today that they expect within about 14 months that all white-collar jobs will be taken over by AI. Now think about that. Think about that. That's impressive. Now, what's less impressive is if you've engaged with any type of AI customer service. That is worse than the Spanish Inquisition. It truly is. I'd rather, have a root canal than sit through that bullshit for over 3 seconds. And it's usually several minutes. But AI is helping with a degree of things. I'm very fortunate the people that I know. I know one of the head AI government guys on policy. And we were on a panel for Northern Trust Bank. And this has been probably a year ago. And he and I had almost the exact same opinion on AI. That at that point, a year ago, mind you, that it was bullshit. You had a lot of security companies that were saying criminals were big on AI, but as far as actual use, it was minimal at best. We're a year later now. Now, back then we said within 18 months, the game was going to change. It happened a lot faster than 18 months, a lot faster. It will continue to veer in favor of criminals for the next probably 5-7 years. All right, because those systems have to learn that type of criminal behavior. If they've never seen it before, criminals are going to win. So it's a reactionary type of system right now. It won't always be that way. It won't always be that way. And it may happen a lot sooner than 5 years, but ultimately AI will help more than it harms. But in the near future, we will absolutely see AI be very successful in any number of cybercrimes. My real fear is that the use of deep fakes, of real-time audio and video. That's my real fear there. Crime online happens. There's 3 motivations. It's status. You're trying to impress your criminal peers. It's cash. You're trying to profit. Or it's ideology. someone's pissed you off and you're looking to get even. And all three of those motivations have a different type of persistence. Like a cash motivation, that's a very low persistence. I'm looking for the lowest hanging fruit, easiest access. Status is more persistent. I'm trying to impress criminal peers. I'm not looking for the easiest security. Ideology, I don't give a damn what type of security you've got. I'm going to get you. So if you look at deep fakes, my fear, and it's still a reactionary type of system. You've got a security company that's able to recognize that something is an AI generated image, video, or audio. And if they can't, they then go back and tweak the algorithm. Bad guys go back, tweak their image or audio or video, and it's back and forth. I do believe that AI will veer toward the criminal side of things, the attack side of things, to the point that those deep fakes will not be able to be recognized as deep fakes in time to stop the damage that will be done. So imagine, an unarmed black man, because we all know cops love to shoot unarmed black men. You never hear about cops shooting an armed black man. You always hear about cops shooting an unarmed black man. So imagine that video of cops gunning down an unarmed black man. City blows up, they burn it to the ground, and 3 days later it comes out that, it was a deep fake, and actually the assailant, he had a shotgun and he was firing away. Well, by that point in time, the damage is done. I think that we could, as a society, get to the point where we are not able to trust anything that we see or hear in an online environment. And that can be extremely dangerous, but we could very well get there. But at the end of the day, I think that, long term, AI wins for the good guys. Short term, criminals are going to eat everyone alive with it. Absolutely. Absolutely. That's going to happen. It truly is. So there you go. Let's see what else we got. Ilya Lichtenstein. That's that son of a bitch. So his dad, Igor, Trevor, Robert, whatever his dad's name was. When I was ripping off the United States Secret Service, Ilya's dad and I had a tiff. And that tiff was Secret Service agents in their infinite wisdom, because they didn't know shit at that point in time. In their infinite wisdom, they were having me download every single thing that was being sent or offered, because they were trying to arrest everyone on the planet. Well, Ilya's dad installs a keylogger on a government computer. Ooh. See, he didn't know I was an informant. Yeah. So he installed a keylogger on a government computer. I never knew what happened. I knew the name because the agents told me the name. They had identified him, and they flew to Chicago to talk to him. And Ilya was at university at that point in time, or someplace through there. I didn't find out until later what happened. And what happened is Ilya's dad became an informant for the United States Secret Service. That's odd. It's odd that Ilya's dad, a real estate guy who supposedly fled Russia for, religious persecution reasons, would have enough information to be able to become a very successful informant for the United States Secret Service. So successful that the United States Secret Service sought to hide that ever happened. That ever happened. And if it hadn't been for someone that I was responsible for putting in jail, John Giannone had put in all these FOIA requests, and he had gotten the documents that showed that Ilya's dad had turned informant. Later on, he submits the exact same FOIA request, and those documents are non-existent. So the Secret Service had burned them. They gotten rid of them, tried to hide it. What ended up happening with that? Now, Bitfinex I broke the news. Bitfinex had offered anyone that if they could, point out or finger who actually did the theft, because Ilya did not. Ilya was stupid. He barely knew how to launder money. Same thing for Razzle Khan. Complete fucking idiots, both of them. The skilled individual, Ilya's dad was skilled, but there was an FSB component to this entire case. That was a lot of the problem. And what happens ultimately, so Bitfinex had offered a reward, so John and I were supposed to be getting, $40 million a piece. Shit. I live right next to the Barber Motor Speedway. That's a very nice racetrack. I was already looking at cars that I could buy to go very fast around that track over and over every single day and hopefully kill myself on that track. That's what I was convinced I wanted to do. $40 million, I could buy several very fast vehicles. And I was already spending money before it got there. Well, that didn't happen. Because what happens is the United States declares that case national security. That's what happens. That's what happens. So they don't have to talk about any type of Russian intelligence that was involved, or Ilya's dad that was involved, or the Secret Service who potentially hired a Russian spy to be an informant for the United States Secret Service. They didn't have to mention any of that bullshit. They just claimed it a matter of national security, and no one was ever allowed to know anything about it again, except that, Ilya comes up on plea day and says, I'm the guy who stole it. No, dipshit, you didn't steal a damn thing. You didn't. You're an idiot. You're an idiot. You couldn't steal someone's peanut butter sandwich at lunchtime. You're not competent. You're an idiot. You never had any competency. So yeah, that's what happened. David Smith, good morning or hello. Hope you're doing all right. We had fried bologna and scrambled eggs this morning. That's a great breakfast. I think I'm going to have that tomorrow morning for breakfast. Shot 77 down. Brett, hope you are well. Sanpuku eyes. I am doing all right. I've got my extra toasty cheeses. I've got my drink that I scraped the label off because, you're not supposed to drink. Not that I ever would. You're not supposed to drink alcohol. And I'm not. This is a sarsaparilla. Very tasty one of that. Very tasty. I learned to only bank in person at one bank where they know I was hacked by the DA, General Assistant James Hargis. No phone, no email transactions. And sometimes that is exactly what you got to do. Janice Noble. Someone called me one day and said my identity was stolen and was trying to get information out of me. I told them I didn't give my info out to nobody. And that's exactly what you're supposed to tell them. That's exactly what you're supposed to tell them. Now, here's the thing. Some information about identity theft. I said yesterday that most elements of online financial crime, it has an element of identity theft attached to it. Everyone's, and I mean everyone's, information is already out there. It's not like you can do anything to make sure that your information isn't compromised. It's already been compromised. It was the year before last. I don't know the last year's stats yet, but year before last, there was 2,570 just reported breaches. Just reported, because a lot of companies, they don't report that they've been breached because they don't want their customers to think that they're fucking idiots. So they don't report that. But those companies who did report, 2,570 reported breaches. Of those 2,500 reported breaches, 57 billion records compromised just that year. So everyone's information is available. The reason that you may not, and Janice, I'm sorry that you got hit. I truly am. But the reason that someone may not have been hit yet is think of it as the worst lottery on the planet. There's just so much information out there, and there's not enough criminals to get to it yet, but they will get your number soon. Soon. So if you accept that, if you accept your information is out there, like I can go, a child's identity runs anywhere from $2 up to $25, depending on the seller. All right. Children's identities. Children are the number one victims of identity theft. 25% are going to be hit with it. That's medical fraud. It's synthetic fraud. It's tax fraud. Is where it basically lays. If you can accept that your information is out there, that there's nothing you can do to stop it from being out there, the next logical question becomes, what can I do that if a criminal does get my information, they can't use it to cause me harm or to commit crime with it? And you can answer that. And it starts with freezing the credit of every single person in the house. Credit freezes are free. You have to contact all 3 credit bureaus. They're going to try to sell you some sort of monitoring bullshit. You're going to tell them no. You want the credit freeze. They're free. They've been free since 2018. The percent of the United States population that has a credit freeze in place is 12%. 12%. And it's free. It stops all new account fraud dead in its tracks. It protects children like a charm. Adults, we have existing accounts, so it doesn't stop fraud on those. So you have to monitor accounts, place alerts on accounts where you can. And then finally, you have to practice good password security. Those 3 things. Those 3 things are the cornerstone of personal online security. You start there, then you can add multi-factor authentication, whatever you want to from that point. But you start with those 3 things. Freeze credit, monitor accounts, place alerts, good password security. That's what you do. And you build from there. All right. And when you do that, come to find out, you are no longer that lowest hanging fruit because most attackers are looking for cash. So they're looking for the easiest access that gives them the largest return on that criminal investment. So, you know, if you're not lowest hanging fruit, they're going to find somebody that's a little bit lower hanging, that's a little bit easier to pick and profit from. That's where it starts. Okay. Penny Napier, good evening. I hope you're doing all right. Deborah Noble Brown, I hope you're doing all right. Damn, I like you. You're all right. Penny Napier, I said once the job is done, there's blood everywhere, and I told you not to call me. Oh, yeah. I posted a video of the butterfly that sat on the screen and me while I watched your show. I've shared your video on my channel. I appreciate that. I do. Thank you so much for that. Let's see. I did that joke too, Penny. When I was a caregiver, my client had so many of those calls. We did everything to the scam callers. She had a ball telling me what to say to the next one. And sometimes it's a lot of fun. And the thing is that the more time you take up of them, time is money. You know, that's the more time that I'm spending talking to you because you keep bugging me is the time that I could be spent ripping someone off. So why don't you leave me alone? And they don't like that. They don't like that at all. Let's see. I lost signal for about 35 minutes. I hope that's not on my end. Hell, it might be. I don't know. But thank you for tuning back in. What do we got here? Lennox-based Eskimo. Glad you're back. Dude, I'm glad I'm back too. I'm glad. I really am. I'm glad I'm back too. And I got to tell you, I think I'm glad that I'm back at a late hour. I didn't know if I would be. Last night I did it. It felt decent. It did. But I was still kind of questionable. Tonight I'm like, shit, I think I like the midnight hour. I'm sure at some point UFOs or something will pop up. You know, I can't very well start my morning with a sarsaparilla like this, but I can certainly end my night with one. I mean, why not? So, yeah, I'm glad I'm back, too. If everyone wants more Brett, please hit the like button to help out the channels. Thank you for seeing that. I appreciate that. Please hit that like and subscribe button. That's right. That's right. I know it's off topic, but the Earth core temporarily stopped and started spinning in the opposite direction. Thoughts? You do know that it's weird things, right? I mean, it's weird things. You know, there's been moments in history that the polarity of the planet has shifted almost instantaneously at the same time. I don't know what to think about it. I mean, we jumped the shark as a planet. Let's be honest now. As a planet, we jumped the shark. I mean, it wasn't with Fonzie when he literally jumped the shark. But when did we as a planet, at what point did we jump the shark? I mean, we're in a timeline now that really rationally we should have never been in. We should have never. Like I'm going to talk tomorrow about Pam Bondi and how Epstein. The news report came out that Epstein gave that woman $3 million. Are you kidding me? So I mean, the timeline that we're in should have never existed. I'm not sure. I'm going to have to put some thought into that. I mentioned, I think yesterday, some possibilities on when things actually went awry for our country and our planet. But I mean, we have absolutely, as a race, as a people, we have jumped the shark. And maybe if you've seen that movie Cabin in the Woods, at the end of that, the characters are like, well, maybe Armageddon and everybody just giving up the ghost is starting over and give some other species an opportunity. Maybe that's not such a bad idea when you start to think about it. I don't know. Or AI deepfakes to get someone fired. There you go. AI deepfakes to get someone fired. Absolutely. That's an ideological type of attack, but that's extremely effective. I've had, you said, get someone fired. I've had someone messaging me about, wanting to get even with people. And what they're wanting to do is, can't we at least get them fired? And I was like, yeah, you can get them fired, but, how about, just calm the hell down for a little bit, calm down a little bit. Take a breath. Go get you some THC gummies or something like that. Chill out for a minute, get you a sarsaparilla and enjoy. We might just want to believe. We can't believe it anyway. I know. I'll check this out later if I can. Farmer's Market in the morning. I'm glad you're doing this avenue too. I like this stuff, dude. It feels right. I'm going to tell you, Michael, it feels right. It does. It feels right doing a nighttime show like this. I have no idea if we're going to grow membership or not. I don't have a clue. I don't know. It's like Ripley's, I just don't know. But it feels right. It feels so right. We're going to continue. We're not going to broadcast every day. I can't do that because I got to sleep at some point. And I know it's Sunday, so I'm not going to have a show tomorrow night. Sunday's show, because when Shadow Crew was popped, I mentioned this last night, most criminals congregated together online at about 7 p.m. Eastern, I think, was a time. So what we'll do is Sunday, and I'll advertise it beforehand. So Sunday's show will be an early evening show. But other than that, I think we'll probably come in Monday, Wednesday, Fridays at that 11 p.m. Eastern time slot and see how the show continues to grow. And I'll advertise it, and hopefully people will get used to, 4 shows a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 11 p.m., Sunday at 7 p.m. Eastern. I think it feels right. We'll see. Okay. Linus-based Eskimo. I used Keylogger to monitor my PC when my family member used to keep informed on what they were doing online in 06, helped me to get her help. And, the way I found my first wife was cheating on me is I put a keylogger on her system back in, 04? Yeah, 04 I did that. And that worked like a charm, much to my distress and depression and subsequent divorce. And absolutely did that. Hopefully no one takes what you say and uses it for bad. And David, they might. I mean, the information that we're talking about is stuff that, you could put some stuff together. You absolutely could. You could put stuff together and commit some crime. What I've found is a lot of not a lot, but not the way I put things together. The good guys, those people who are trying to fight fraud or practice proper cybersecurity. A lot of those individuals, they simply don't know that type of criminal world or how these crimes are specifically committed or how criminals network together, things like that. So what I think of it as is that the trade-off is that I'm educating people who really need to be educated, not only cybersecurity, fraud prevention, law enforcement, but potential victims. I'm educating them. And the people who are going to commit crime, they don't have to come to me to get that information. They can go to Telegram, they can go to Dread, they can go to all these other forums that are out there, or they can ask some other criminals how to do it. And typically they'll be told. So if they wanted the information, they don't have to get it from me. At the same time, a lot of the other people on the other side of the fence, if you're going to get that information, if there's someone to get it from, it's going to be me. It's going to be me. So that's what I think of it as right there. Moving right along, so we're going to close out the show here in just a minute. Social engineering, amen. That's where it's all headed toward. That's where it's all headed toward. That's the crazy thing is it's no longer a technical game. Most attackers are moving towards social engineering, which is great for my career. Shit, I can do that stuff. Talk about that all day. How that works, why it works. There's a big difference between you see this stuff in cybersecurity, fraud prevention too. You'll see these people who are their LinkedIn profile. They'll say they're a social engineer, a gray hat or a white hat social engineer. Bullshit. And then you go to these conferences like Black Hat or DEF CON. And let's be honest, those conferences, the only thing that happens there is you get a group of people that sit around in a circle and they talk about the way crimes will be committed. And no criminal would ever commit the crimes the way that they're talking about that they would be committed. Ever. And then they do the social engineering bits. So, and you've heard these stories about stealing all the laptops out of someone's room, getting all the hotel keys in the casino, and all this other bullshit. These big, flamboyant social engineering attacks. That is not how it works. It is not. It absolutely is not. You don't want to be identified. You want that potential victim to think that they're making that choice of their own accord, meaning it's the smallest thing you can do to get that potential victim to make that choice. That's what social engineering is. It's not the bullshit that the white hats and the gray hats scream and write books on and have social engineering farms at conferences at. It's not that at all. So just saying, just throwing that out there. just David, I love you, man. You're great. Dillian, Brett, I once got a call saying I had a car in my name out in the field that was used for a robbery. Whew. And asked for my social and stuff like that. But I told them I don't have a car. I don't even have a license. So there you go. I like that. Michael, have you seen the app called Jim? It's a card processing app, RFID. I'll check that Jim out. I will absolutely check that out in the morning. I want to help people fight identity theft, to give back from my dark 90s times. Well, dude, you can do it. Why don't you send me a message? All right. Tell you what, I'm going to type in. Look here. App. Look here, dude. So I just typed in my email address, gollum@anglerfish.com. So if you're serious about that, and I don't know if you said you dark 90s times, if you've actually given up the ghost of committing crime, I say on the other show, you can't serve two masters. You're either a good guy or a bad guy, servant of God, servant of Satan, criminal or not. If you are no longer a criminal, not moonlighting as one or anything else like that, let's have a talk, and I'll help you any way I can. All right? I mean that. And if you are still moonlighting, let's still have a talk, and maybe we can develop a rapport, and you'll decide to give up the ghost at that point, and then I can help you. All right. So that's not a bad offer. It's not a bad offer at all. Just saying. That sounds to me like that's a pretty solid offer. All right. Time is the only thing you can't replace. Amen. Well, it's definitely not on your end unless you hacked and turned off my internet. Well, there you go. All right, what else we got? David. I'm going to close this out in just a second. As long as they don't get mine, it's fine, but they wouldn't be getting much. Well, there you go. There you go. Let's see. Cybercrime Show. It's me doing that. See you next time we talk. Well, reach out to me again. All right, reach out to me again. Now, look, we're closing the door for tonight. How long do we stay on tonight? A minute? Yeah, we stayed on 2 hours. Dear Lord. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 11 p.m. Eastern. Sundays at, right now I'm going to say 7 p.m. Eastern. All right. May change that to 7:30. I'll advertise every day before it goes in until people get used to it. If you have any issues, all right, if you have security issues, if you you have a child that you think is maybe a potential victim of a sextortion scam, you've got a relative, friend, family member, enemy, whatever that might be, about to be defrauded. You are questioning some sort of crypto token. You've got any question like that, just need some guidance, assistance whatsoever. That's why this show is supposed to exist. That's why it's supposed to exist. It's supposed to help people, mitigate or protect themselves against that type of attacker that I used to be. Now, at the same time, more than happy to discuss any topic that anyone wants to discuss whatsoever, because it's late. It's late, and sometimes somebody don't want to talk about crime. Is that all you do, Brett, is talk about crime? Well, no, it's not all I do. So, some night, if that we don't want to talk about that, you guys want to talk about something else, we'll do that. We'll do that. Damn right we'll do that. Because we're very flexible. We're very flexible. And we believe in satisfying listeners. That's what we believe in. So, my name is Brett Johnson. This is Cybercrime101, the coast to coast of crime podcast, live at that. You guys have an excellent night. Get some sleep. That's where I'm going right now. Find out where young Pookie is so he can snuggle up and we can go to sleep. I love you guys, and I truly appreciate you tuning in this time of night. I truly do. So thank you all so much. Have an excellent weekend. I'll see you guys back on Sunday. Until then, enjoy your weekend. Get some rest. Just do the right damn thing. Until next time, take care and bye-bye.